My mood is so much better now.
I came into this room and Jordan's like, "What are you all happy about?" I was like, "I don't nothing." Like, it didn't even register to me that I was promoting happiness.
Strategy show.
And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show. It is Tuesday, January 4th. I am Josh Engelman. I am joined by Adam Scher. We are brought to you by YAHOO Sports. We've got a nice, balanced 5-game slate here for you today. Got a lot to talk about. Got a lot to dig into in some of these games. So hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Adam, what went better? Your Monday in DFS or Crypto Rangers?
Easily my Monday in DFS. I got second on the night slate last night.
Oh, nice. Congrats.
Thanks. It was a tie, so it wasn't anything crazy, but
sure.
Came
Better than not second.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, also still would have been my Monday.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Not great for me on the main slate. Trae Young breaking everything in the end was nice to see. It's a monster game. You don't get a lot of people doing that kind of game, but did not have nearly enough there. Where'd DSJ go?
I didn't even see what the rotations were. I didn't play him once he didn't start, so I kind of didn't pay attention.
Yeah, he was obviously a very different play once he wasn't the guy starting. I didn't totally expect. I think 12 minutes is what we got out of him last night. That was not an expectation for me.
That wasn't my expectation, but it definitely became really risky when not only was he not starting, but with Nurkic back too. That lineup spot, but when we talked about it earlier in the day, it was, we kind of said whoever starts is going to look better, but it probably doesn't really matter because you're still going to have all the center minutes going to Nance and Covington, and it's just going to be so difficult to fill out a lineup without using both guards. Once Nurkic was back too, it was just I still thought he'd play mid-20s, but it was really risky.
Yeah, 39 minutes for Simons. I could have never got to that number even in the start. Tony Snell didn't play, which is
I thought that was likely once Nurkic was back and he wasn't starting.
Interesting. Okay. Either way,
and I thought Simons would play a ton once that kind of went the way that it did. I didn't think he'd play 40 minutes, but it was kind of just because my biggest question mark with Simons was he wasn't out that long, but you never really know with these guys coming back. Once they just chose to start him over Dennis Smith Jr., I thought the writing was kind of on the wall. Okay, well, he's good to go. He's going to be a starter.
43 real points for Simons yesterday.
Yeah, apparently his granddad had died the night before.
Sorry for your loss, Anthony Simons. I wish I could have known that information to play the narrative, but no luck for that one. Anyway, we have 5 games to talk about. We have a lot to talk about, so I'm ready to dive in if you are.
Yep.
And the first game that we can talk about is one where we can't really talk about it. And that's kind of a problem, or at least we can't half talk about it. Memphis Grizzlies in Cleveland, 217 total. Grizzlies 3-point dogs. We don't really know what to do with Memphis, though, because they played yesterday, and we don't have a status on Dylan Brooks or DeAnthony Melton. They could conceivably be back. No Kyle Anderson, Tillman, or Conchar, allegedly. For right now, I have Brooks and Melton out. They could be in. They could be out. I don't know the difference. For right now, we just have to wait to get this information. So how do you want to treat this Memphis Grizzlies team right now?
Yeah, if we assume that those guys are still out, then I think it's kind of just the status quo, the same thing that we saw last night. You're going to get increased production for John Morant. You're going to get increased usage potentially for guys like Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson. You're probably going to get Tyus Jones playing alongside Morant again. You'll probably get a little bit of Clark alongside Adams again, making Clark look like a good value, especially against a bigger Cleveland team as well. Killian Tilly, I assume, would start, and if he can avoid foul trouble, play pretty decent minutes. So, I think it's kind of just the same thing that we saw last night if those guys aren't able to go.
Yeah, I don't think that anybody looks great. It's just a lot of okay to goods. And if those guys happen to get ruled in, I assume this entire Memphis team is a no-go on a 5-gamer.
Yeah, I think they get really ugly if those guys come back. And then the final thing, I guess, to point out from last night too, if those guys are out. So we saw Killian Tilly get in foul trouble, which is the reason he only played 16 minutes. But we did at least get Jared Culver as the next man up. He ended up playing 30 minutes. He, I think, would play a lot less if Tilly's not in foul trouble. But it did answer the question I had said on one of the shows that I thought Memphis would add someone to the rotation. I just kind of had no idea who that someone was. The answer is Jared Culver.
Yeah, I gave Culver 8 minutes yesterday, which was slightly less than the 30 that he got.
I gave Snead like 18, which
Okay.
I think if you just make that Culver was right, except for the Tilly foul trouble.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, this one's tricky. Like, I don't get to anybody more than like 15% or so, which isn't all that crazy for a 5-gamer. It's pretty flat. The highest owned guy in the game is Desmond Bane at 16% on DraftKings. Like, that all makes sense. But if you lump Dylan Brooks and D'Anthony Melton back into this one, unless one of those two guys have a really low price, I think we're basically nuking most of Memphis.
Yeah, like you'll get to a point where obviously you can still play John Morant or Jaren Jackson. They're still capable of having big games. Same for Steven Adams. But like if Melton's back, I wouldn't anticipate much, if any, of Tyus Jones alongside John Morant. I think it would make Jones look pretty bad. If Brooks is back, it takes usage away from Morant, Jackson, Bane. So it drives down their projections.
Yeah. I don't have anything else I can really say here. I don't have anything else that I really want to add. Who's your favorite play in this game? Assuming they're out for right now, at least.
Favorite play for Memphis?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's either Morant or, if you need the value, Brandon Clark. He played 24 minutes last night. Adams played about 27.
Okay.
Or so it was like 24 and a half and 27. So they played like 3.5, 4 minutes next to each other. I think you and I had said yesterday that's what we expected. If you're typically going to get 24-ish minutes from Brandon Clark at 3,800, he's going to look good.
All right, let's go to Cleveland then. Cleveland getting some guys back for this one. We've got Darius Garland off the injury report. Rondo not on the COVID list any longer, but not with the team just yet, evidently. Dylan Windler is probable. We have no Chetty and no Isaac Okoro. So let's start with the Cleveland side, where Evan Mobley is about 20% owned across FanDuel and DraftKings. He's 7,500 on FanDuel, 7,100 on DraftKings. Jared Allen, heavily owned on FanDuel at 7,900. Plus you get the power forward eligibility. He's clocking in at about 30% right now. Both look solid to me. I have no qualms with either of those things. I've got some interest in Garland. I have no idea how much he plays. He's 9,400 on DraftKings. I've got a lot less interest there than I do at 7,800 on FanDuel. What stands out most to you from Cleveland?
Nothing on DraftKings. I mean, they're just all priced up. I'm with you. Like, we don't know how much Garland's going to play. He's 9,400, so you're talking about him being like $400 less than Morant on the other side of this game. Even with Brooks back, $300 less. Even with Brooks back, I would go to Morant first. And if Brooks is out, it's clearly Morant, I think. You can certainly still get a lot of minutes from Jared Allen at 8,500. He can have a good game for sure, but pretty healthy price tag there. Evan Mobley at 7,100, I think is somewhat interesting, but I expect him to lose usage with Garland back. That's kind of the thing, is even though Garland doesn't play the same position as guys like Love and Mobley, I think it's still a negative impact, because you had Evan Mobley, who's been, a 20-ish% usage guy this year. You've had him really step up and take on a bigger role as a facilitator, but also as a scorer, when you take Garland off the floor and the alternatives are Pengos, Markkanen, Jared Allen, Okoro. Like, Mobley's taking a ton of shots. You put Garland out there, and a lot of those shots are going back to Garland. Same can be said for Kevin Love. I don't know how many minutes he plays tonight. I think that he could still play 28 to 30 minutes, but I don't know how much of that extra playing time for him off the bench was due to the fact that they had no other high usage guys on this team, and they were making it a priority to get him out there to score some points. So I don't really know, with Garland back, do you go back to like 25 minutes of Kevin Love? I would think that he still probably plays around 28 to 30 just because he's good and he should, and they're trying to win games, but I don't necessarily think that's a lock. So I think this team is just really difficult to get to for the most part.
Yeah, so I gave Kevin Love 28. So I think we're in the same page of thinking that he's going to continue to get them. I just think that you try to give Love as much as you can when the rest of the guys are like Kevin Pangos or Brandon Goodwin or Lamar Stevens. Like, I think they're just going to continue to try to get a little bit more of the talent on the floor for right now, because they're starting to drop like legitimate bodies. We saw Mobley, Love, and Allen play 96 minutes their last time out. So 2 days ago. That's spot on every single minute of the 4 and the 5. The game before that, December 31st, same rotation. They played 103 minutes together, which means that they did play Evan Mobley at the 3 for at least a little bit. Are you expecting at this point that they are basically just going to split all of the minutes at the 4 and the 5?
Between Allen, Love, and Mobley?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you expect them to play together at all? Do we think we get any 3 Mobley today? Doesn't matter.
Yes. That's kind of the question with Kevin Love, right? It comes down to how much. It comes down to like, do they want to play a kind of awkward lineup that has more scoring with Kevin Love, or do they want one of their most talented players on the bench? Because realistically, all of Allen, Love, and Mobley are 3 of their best 4 players.
Yeah.
And so I think that especially still, like you still don't have Rubio. Obviously, you're not going to have him. You don't have Sexton. So like you do still need some scoring out there. I think they probably lean toward, and Mobley's, a good defender. Like anyway, I think they lean towards just put our best players on the floor and let them figure it out.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page there. Given the totals that I have, I've got them right around just splitting, but I think that we could probably get into like the 102 minutes and they play a little bit alongside of each other as a group. What do we do with someone like Markkanen then? 5,200 on FanDuel, 5,900 on DraftKings, sort of the forgotten man on this team.
Yeah, like
because he sucks.
Right. I think it's not. I think he still has a ceiling. The problem is just that he doesn't take on usage kind of no matter what. Like even with Garland out, it becomes Mobley and Love. Now you have Garland back. I think it's going to be Garland, Love, and some Mobley. So you're still just talking about someone in Markkanen that he gets enough usage to sometimes have good games. He's around 20%. He rebounds enough to sometimes have good games, but you just can't count on any of that being there any given night. And then you also can't totally count on the minutes either, because he can play 34 minutes, but the more that you're playing Mobley, Love, and Allen together, the less that Markkanen's on the floor. Like if Mobley, Love, and Allen are closing, I don't think Markkanen's closing. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they just say, screw it, play the 2 instead of Kevin Pangos or something. But like, I don't think all 4 of them are on the floor.
Yeah, we're on the same page there. What do we do with the Kevin Pangos, Brandon Goodwin, potentially Lamar Stevens trio? Is there value here that we can squeeze out?
I'm not really sure. Like I think Dylan Windler ends up playing a decent amount, which it's tough here because who's playing the 2? Like these guys are all just kind of bad point guards.
Yeah, they have a lot of 1s and a lot of 4-5s, and like nobody that plays the 2 or the 3.
Right. That's why I think you could actually see Windler kind of just step into a bigger role.
That makes sense to me. I mean, how big is Lamar Stevens? Is he like 6'8"? 6'6". Okay. I mean, it doesn't help that he's a power forward on FanDuel. Thanks for that, FanDuel. The old 6'6" power forward. Yeah. I mean, look, Windler, I think probably just makes it so that you don't feel good about getting to anybody else on the bench from Cleveland. Do you think he becomes an actual guy you want to get to, or just a guy that draws a line in the sand for the Cavs?
Can you repeat that?
Yes, I can. Do you think that Dylan Windler actually can matter as a DFS play today? Or do you think that he just completely removes Goodwin, Stevens, Wade, and Pangos as like actual guys you would get to?
I think he mostly scares me off of getting to any, relevant amounts of Pangos and Goodwin. If Windler starts at 3K, I wouldn't mind throwing some darts at him just because the minutes are there if he plays well. So I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't be confident in it, but I wouldn't mind it. I just think that his presence kind of scares me away from giving too much to Pangos or Goodwin.
What's your expectation here? Garland, Goodwin, Markkanen, Mobley, Allen.
It's kind of Garland, Windler, Markkanen, Mobley, Allen.
Okay. Well, yeah, that works
Or
for me
Stevens.
too. Goodwin was the guy that came in and started the second half for Okoro in the last one after Okoro got taken out. So I went with the Goodwin assumption. If it were Windler, I think that would make some sense as well.
Was
If
Windler
Windler's starting, what are you going?
Game,
24, 26? I don't think
so.
Do
you know if Windler was active for that game?
Not that I'm aware of.
Not that he wasn't active that you're aware of, or you don't know?
I both.
Okay. I didn't know if you were saying like you're not aware of what his injury status was, or as far as you know, he was not active.
As far as I know, he wasn't active. Given the fact that he is listed as probable for today, I just feel like that means he was not active for 2 days ago.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Except for I actually kind of think he was active, going from memory. But
all right, Cleveland. DNP sore left knee.
Okay.
So he was properly out.
Okay, so that makes me feel more confident in what I'm saying that Windler ends up in the rotation. Because if he had actually been active that game, then it would be even riskier to think that he's playing since he didn't come in at all in the second half.
Dylan Windler, by the way, flat minimum $3,500 shooting guard on FanDuel, flat minimum $3K shooting guard small forward on DK. If Dylan Windler starts, you're going for 24 minutes at a minimum, right? 22, 24?
Yeah, I would think somewhere in there, yeah.
Yeah. Not a very good.
You can play Allen and Mobley together.
Yeah. Not a very good fantasy performer, but he's a flat 3K guy on a 5-game slate. So it provides some utility. Keep an eye on it, I guess, guys. That's the best that we could really say right now. Anything else you want to touch on for Cleveland?
No, that's it.
All righty. Well, let's talk a little bit about the schedule we've got for the rest of the day. We have the NFL strategy show coming up at 11 a.m. We've got the PGA strategy show back and better than ever, 1 p.m. Eastern time. 2 p.m. we get the NHL strategy show. We've got the NBA deeper dive at 5, and we have the NBA live before lock show at 6. NBA player projections are free. That's always good to get some free projections on the website. PGA rankings are free, and our NHL ownership projections free as well. San Antonio Spurs taking on the Toronto Raptors. And Jordan, just FYI, you put that Tyrese Halliburton prop under the Spurs, not the Kings. They are both in the last game, but don't worry, I caught your mistake. Let's talk Spurs here. Missing some bodies makes them a little bit more interesting, and this whole game is an exercise in that. DeJounte Murray out, no Doug McBuckets, no Lonnie Walker, no Zach Collins, Keita Bates-Diop questionable. I actually think that is mildly important for today. We'll start on the San Antonio side. Lots of ownership coming in here. Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell, and Trey Jones are all like 25 to 30% owned on FanDuel. Vassell and Trey Jones are 20 to 25% owned on DraftKings. You're also still getting some love to Jakob Poeltl and Derek White. Who is your favorite option on San Antonio for today?
There's a lot. It's either White or Poeltl, I think.
Really? Okay. Talk to me.
I mean, you could put Vassell in there too, but so I mean, White gets more. He has a higher ceiling without Murray. You can count on more usage there. You can expect him to play more minutes if this game's competitive. I'm just really interested in Poeltl without Murray as well. I had talked about it the other day. I don't think he even ended up having that good of a game, but Poeltl actually sees his rates go up in every category without DeJounte Murray on the floor because Poeltl's a capable passer. He's obviously a good rebounder. He can score a bit, and Murray does all of those things because Murray's a relatively high usage guy at 25 to 26%, but Murray's a double-digit rebounder. He gets a lot of assists. So Poeltl actually benefits in every category without him on the floor, and I think that kind of goes overlooked because typically you're not really bumping up a center's rates because the point guard's out.
Yeah, it rarely feels intuitive to do that, but it doesn't make it any less true. I think he looks like basically properly owned in the 15-ish% range for today. Happy to get there. Derek White would be the guy that I'm interested in most, I guess, on DraftKings, or Keldon Johnson. You can flip a coin between the two. I think what we need to do, though, is talk through Trey Jones. 4,100 on FanDuel, 3,800 on DraftKings. Trey Jones played 32 minutes their last time out. Now, that game did go to overtime, but just saying, he did play 32 minutes.
He didn't even play all of overtime.
Right. So, call it like 28, 29. Is he like, are we getting this again? This is the same rotation. We didn't have Murray. We didn't have McDermott. We didn't have Lonnie Walker. Is he just going to play a lot again?
Yeah, I guess he probably plays like 30.
I gave him 26 because I don't necessarily know if he has to be the guy that closes. It wouldn't surprise me if it were Bryn Forbes.
Right.
If
like
Keita
they didn't even
Diop
like
is in, I think that really doesn't bode well for Trey Jones's ceiling of minutes.
if Keita Diop is in, I think there's a good chance that he starts instead of Trey Jones.
Agreed.
And yeah, to your point, even if he's out, like you could easily just get the closing lineup that you had last game where it was essentially Forbes over Jones.
Yeah, Forbes actually played more than Trey Jones did in this previous game. I don't have a great. I did put Keita Diop in, so I'm a little lighter on the Trey Jones, Bryn Forbes situation. Let's say Trey Jones is starting today. How do you feel about him? 3,800.
I think if he's starting, he looks very good. Like mid to upper mid 20s to 30 minutes is certainly where I would expect him to be if he's starting. And he's a 0.86 DraftKings points per minute guy this year.
What about Keita Diop if you think that he is in and starting? 3,700 today on DraftKings.
He's riskier because like him being back would just mean that there's an extra rotation body basically. So there's still minutes there for him where he could easily play into the mid 20s, but at the same time, he doesn't necessarily have to. You could still just get like, 20 minutes from him and it just, takes some minutes away from Forbes, takes some minutes away from Jones. So like there's different ways that could go. Like I think Vassell and Johnson are clearly the priorities ahead of Keita Diop in terms of who's going to get minutes.
Yeah. I think we're on the same page there too. What do we do with someone like Bryn Forbes on a day like today where he's 3,900? Is he sneaky more interesting than Trey Jones?
I think a lot depends on ownership because I think that both their minutes are volatile. So I think that like if Jones is starting, so we're assuming Jones is starting for this conversation. I think that Jones is the safer play just because you're getting those minutes and, you assume he's going to play 26 to 30. Forbes, like there's still different ways that bench rotation can go. But for the season, Trey Jones is at 0.86 DraftKings points per minute. Forbes is at 0.84. So if you were to get similar playing time, like last game, you got basically in regulation the same amount of minutes from those guys. And so like in theory, if you think they're going to play about the same minutes, you would just take the lower owned one.
It's a wild rotation for the Spurs. They so rarely just have it so cut and dry where this one group of guys just gets all of the playing time. They're so much more likely to just play 20-something minutes. By the way, just in case you're curious, Thad Young still didn't get on the floor, even missing DeJounte Murray, Doug McDermott, and Lonnie Walker. Amazing stuff. Let's talk Vassell here. I think he's sort of the easiest guy to get to from San Antonio. 4,800 on FanDuel, 4,400 on DraftKings. You got a bunch of guys that sort of overlap his position that are just not in for today. He's the highest owned guy across both sites, but I think that makes some sense. He's just he's the guy that you could probably have the most confidence in that is also a bit of a value play.
Yeah, I just think that he's someone where like he's not a bad fantasy producer. It's kind of just that he always runs into a roadblock of like McDermott or Keita Diop or Walker or some combination of those guys limiting his minutes a little bit. But he's at 0.88 DraftKings minutes. DraftKings points per minute for the season with both McDermott and Walker out and potentially Keita Diop out. You should play a lot of minutes. Played about 36 in regulation last game. Even if you're getting like 30 to 32 at 4,400, he's going to look good.
Yep. I think we're on the same page there. There's just a lot to like here for San Antonio today. A lot of different options. Do you see it's probably a little too early for that kind of discussion, but is this a team that you would want to be setting groups for? Because they got a lot of different weird pieces that could close today.
Yeah, so I feel confident that Derek White, Keldon Johnson, Jakob Poeltl, and probably Devin Vassell are in the closing lineup. So you could just say max one of Forbes, Jones, Keita Diop if he's in, Josh Primo, anybody else. You also could just say max two of Vassell, Jones, Forbes. That's a little bit riskier, but it is only a 5-game slate, and I think that there's still some ways that like you could get Forbes closing over Vassell for one reason or another.
Yeah, I was looking at something maybe like Landale, Keldon Johnson, Poeltl, max 2.
I would just do a max 1 on Landale and Poeltl.
Yeah. Yeah, you're probably right there.
I mean, they overlapped a little bit last game, but that was like a weird spot where suddenly Drew Eubanks played and then Landale came in later alongside Pirtle. But for the most part, you're just getting those backup minutes.
Anything else we should talk about here about San Antonio? I think that Keita Bates-Diop piece is really important.
Yeah, so do I. And also Landale, like if you need a punt play on DraftKings, $3,300 Landale's not crazy. He did play that minor stretch alongside Pirtle last game, and that's important just because, like, let's say Pirtle plays 30, he played 36. If I'm looking at, yeah, the first was their last game. So Pirtle played 36, including overtime. So he played like 31 in regulation. Landale played 17. So yeah, I mean, you basically just got it adding up to 48 again. But they did play him alongside him a little bit. So like basically, if instead of what you would need to happen for it to really work out for you is either Pirtle getting in foul trouble or that spot in the rotation where Eubanks subs in instead of Landale, have that be Landale, but then Landale stays out there when Pirtle comes back. I don't think that that's super likely or anything, but non-zero chance.
We'll head over to Toronto, where it looks like we're back to normal for this team. We've got, as I get to it here, no Dragic, David Johnson, or Tremont Waters. Bonga is questionable, but everybody else is just back. So I don't know about you. Siakam, Van Vliet, Anunoby, Trent, Barnes. Are these guys all playing 34 to 36 minutes today? Is this just normal again?
I think so. So Tremont Waters is also on the Wizards now, as a heads up.
Call. Is he really?
He's in health and safety for them now, though, instead of for the Raptors.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I mean, Toronto is just, they're a tournament team to me. I think that they're pretty close to healthy. Like there's no like holes in their lineup that you can really exploit for DFS, but you do still have a Nick Nurse team where you're going to get a lot of minutes from guys. Fred VanVleet played 31 minutes in 3/4 of a blowout win over the Knicks last game. Fully expect him to be back to his 37, 38 minutes. Siakam's playing huge minutes. Barnes played about 30 in that game. Lost like 5 to garbage time. I think you're mostly just back to status quo here, where you have some slightly overpriced Raptors, but there's still a pretty good chance that one of these guys just goes out there and has a massive game. It's just that their median projections kind of aren't that great because it could be any one of Van Vliet, Siakam, Trent, Barnes, and Anunoby. Like any of these guys are capable of getting hot. I think Van Vliet and Siakam look like the top two.
Yeah, I agree. I like Trent if he's 5% owned on DraftKings and everybody else is going to get the ownership. Like I'll just take my chances that Gary Trent stepped into some passing lanes today. Anunoby is the guy pulling the most ownership on FanDuel. He's 27% owned. I think that's reasonable. Siakam is the guy pulling the most on DraftKings, where he's only center eligible in 8,700. Seems pretty reasonable for him to be only center eligible. Do we want to talk through this stupid center rotation for Toronto now? We got 19 minutes out of Khem Birch, 18 minutes out of Precious Achiuwa, and 21 minutes out of Chris Boucher. It looked like Achiuwa and Birch were sort of just like backups to each other. And then there was only ever overlap with Chris Boucher. I don't really know what they're doing here.
Yeah, I'm not really sure either. I think from a DFS standpoint, I'm not overly concerned about it. Like, I don't think Boucher is going to get enough minutes at 6,100 for me to want to get there. I don't think I'm going to want to, I don't think I'm getting enough from Achiuwa or Birch to want to use a center spot on them.
Yep. I gave them all 18 minutes and just shrugged my shoulders at that point.
Seems pretty reasonable.
Yeah. So when it comes to if they're running the same starting five with Siakam at the 5, then I think you could happily have shares of just about anybody from Toronto. Like Scotty Barnes for 8K looks probably the worst of anybody on DK, but even still, there's something there because the minutes are crazy. They could play 38 today, but clear across the board. Wouldn't be surprising at all.
Yeah, without a doubt.
All right. We want to move on to Indy.
Yep.
This is where it starts to get ridiculous. The Indiana Pacers are 1.5-point underdogs in New York. They are without Malcolm Brogdon, Karis LeVert, Chris Duarte, TJ Warren, TJ McConnell, Keelan Martin, Isaiah Jackson, Jeremy Lamb, and Goga Batadze. So we have 20 to 30% ownership going to Sabonis, Holiday, Turner, Dwayne Washington, who I called Dwayne Johnson on the process show this morning. Kiefer Sykes, 26% owned there, 24 on DraftKings. Let's just work through the starters. Let's work through the real players first. Sabonis, Holiday, Turner. I think they're playing as many minutes as they can basically handle. Who do you like the most?
Out of the real players?
Yes, out of the 3 real players.
I think Sabonis, since you get power forward eligibility.
Yeah.
Like he obviously benefits from Levert and Brogdon not being on the floor. I really like Turner as well. I think he benefits. I think he's going to play a lot too, but he is a center, so I think just a little bit more difficult to get to.
Yeah. Sabonis's rates are really weird. Like if you look at them when you take Levert and Brogdon off, he just doesn't get a bump this season. It's a very different setup than what we had last year. I don't know if that changes or anything moving forward, but happily getting to Sabonis, happily getting to Turner. I don't want to say that I'm happily getting to Justin Holiday, but the minutes are there at the very least. I feel comfortable with him playing a shit ton today. What do we do with Kiefer Sykes and Dwayne Washington? Washington 4K across both sites. Sykes 3,700 on FanDuel, 3,500 on DraftKings. If you're picking between the two and they're basically the same ownership right now, who do you want?
I mean, I think I just end up playing a lot of both, but for one, ownership definitely matters. But like you said, about the same ownership right now. Sykes played 35 minutes last game. Washington played 34 and a half. For the season, it's not like we have much of a sample of either of these guys. Sykes has played 54 minutes without Brogdon and Levert. He's at 0.58 DraftKings points per minute. Washington's at 0.86. I mean, I guess based on that, I lean Washington, but it's not like we have a whole lot to go on, including preseason. Kind of the same, applies. Washington's been the better fantasy producer. In 119 total minutes, including the preseason, Dwayne Washington's at 0.81 DraftKings points per minute, 96 total minutes for Sykes. He's at 0.54. So, yeah, I mean, I think leaning Washington, but again, it's not like it would be shocking if Sykes just has the better game.
Yeah. Lucky for them. What a great time to step into that role and just be there. Perfect timing. Just going to get 30 minutes with the Pacers. I think the biggest question that we have today is how many minutes does O'Shea Brissett play? Because it doesn't really seem like anybody else is going to step into relevance. O'Shea Brissett is right there to basically play like whatever minutes Miles Turner and Domantas Sabonis don't play at the bigs. That did not break that way this last time out. We got 16 minutes out of O'Shea Brissett. A little bit of foul trouble, if I remember correctly, but now I actually don't remember. So I'm talking it into existence. I gave him 24 minutes.
No foul trouble.
I have mild interest.
No foul trouble, by the way.
Okay. He apparently he missed like defensive rotations and got pulled out. I think somebody said that in my process channel or show today.
I don't know about that either. Just from looking at the rotations here, he just ran a normal bench rotation. He was behind Torrey Craig coming off the bench.
Okay.
But he's kind of interesting to me in tournaments just because he's one of the actual rotation players available on this team. So based on the last game, I have no confidence in him getting expanded run here. But it's also not like it would be shocking if for one reason or another he just gets up to 24 minutes. So I think it's going to be tough to get to him. But I guess it's one of those guys where I'm going to have a hard time getting there. It also wouldn't shock me if I'm kind of pissed off that I didn't get there at the end of the night.
Yeah.
But there's just nothing from... There's nothing from the rotations last game that I can point to and say, Brissett was going to play more or should have played more or whatever. Torrey Craig subs in for Justin Holiday. Brissett comes in for Domantas Sabonis. And then Sabonis comes in for Turner. And then Brissett goes away when Turner comes back, basically. I think he subbed out maybe a minute before Turner came back. Okay. And then in the second half, you get Brissett in for Sabonis. Brissett goes away when Turner comes back. So they weren't playing, you need Brissett, Sabonis, and Turner lineups for Brissett to hit his ceiling, or you need foul trouble for Turner / Sabonis.
All right. Anything else for the Pacers?
4,600 on Torrey Craig is a little more expensive than I would want to pay, I think.
Seems safe for me. I don't have a ton of interest. Then we go to the Knicks, who are also walking wounded. We have no Kemba Walker, no Julius Randle, no Derrick Rose, no Nerlens Noel, no Daniel House. Jericho Sims is questionable. Mitchell Robinson is also questionable. Obi Toppin season is here for us once again. 5,300 on FanDuel, 5,200 on DraftKings. I think he's pretty clearly the best play that you're going to find from the Knicks. I think RJ Barrett looks pretty good as well. 5,900 on FanDuel, 5,600 on DraftKings. Both of these guys are 30 to 40% owned, depending on the site. And then Emmanuel Quickly, 4,700 on FanDuel, 4,400 on DraftKings, pulling ownership in the teens. Let's talk Toppin and Barrett first. What stands out most to you for those guys?
So I think Barrett should see increased usage with Kemba still out. Obviously, don't have Rose. Just really weird rotations from last game. Barrett still only played 29 minutes. They basically closed with the bench though. So I think in a competitive game that you're probably getting low to mid 30s from Barrett. There should be plenty of shots to go around with the starters that are going to be out there for the Knicks. So I am interested at 5,600 there. I'm with you on Toppin. Definitely want to pay attention to his ownership. Right now we have him at 35%. I think there's still just going to be plenty of alternatives. I think it kind of looks like the same situation we had the other day where Toppin looks like one of the better values on the slate. I mean, he played insane minutes last game, played 45 minutes. If he's going to do that again, then I don't even know really how you get away from him. But I also don't necessarily just expect him to play 45 minutes. I think that's kind of a difficult projection to make. So it's just another situation where, like, I think he's a very, very good value. I certainly would be playing him in cash and would recommend playing him in cash. But in tournaments, you're still just going to find other 5K guys that can potentially give you a similar projection. So I think he's a good play, but it really is going to matter, what the rest of your lineups look like. If you're able to find low owned plays that you like at other positions.
Yeah, I gave him 34 minutes. If he plays 38, like typical Tibbs rotation, like that's not shocking either. But his minutes seem like that 34 almost feels like a floor barring aggressive foul trouble or injury. And I like your Barrett thoughts as well.
Yeah, and I'll probably project like 38 for Toppin.
Okay.
Because I really don't want to drastically underproject him because I already know his ownership's going to be a problem when I make my lineups. Yeah. So like, I don't want to be like, oh, well, I'm light on Toppin because I don't want to go crazy and then like kind of double lower Toppin. You know what I mean?
Right. I'm with you. What do we do about center? Or is this even something we can discuss right now? If Mitchell Robinson is in, I think he plays like 26 minutes and Taj plays like 22, and you probably don't really have a huge feel about any of them. If Mitchell Robinson happens to be out, though, how much Taj do you want to get at 3,700 power forward center? Or does it depend on the status of Jericho Sims?
I think it kind of depends on Sims. I also think that Toppin depends. So Toppin's minutes are impacted by Sims, I think. Okay. He played almost all of the minutes that Taj wasn't on the floor. So I think that's partly where you get those 45 minutes from. Like sure. if you have Robinson Gibson or you have Gibson Sims, I don't think Toppin's playing center. So I think you're getting like 36 to 38 minutes at power forward, which is still very, very good, but obviously not what we saw last game. So I think it has a bigger impact there. But Gibson, if Robinson is out, I mean, you got 30 minutes in 3 quarters. He's power forward eligible. He's only 3,700. I think he ends up looking like a good value. If Robinson is in, it's a lot more difficult because Robinson at 4,900 at center is fine, but not any sort of priority. And then you're expecting, 21, 22 minutes from Gibson.
Anything else here for the Knicks? Is it quickly seasoned Fournier, Burks? I don't see a lot else here. And if Miles McBride happens to start again, I don't want that experiment.
Yeah, the McBride thing didn't last very long last game. Quickly played 28 minutes last game. Some of that was garbage time. Some of that was Burks being in foul trouble. I'm so confused by Tibbs sometimes. So he doesn't start Burks in the first half. Burks then picks up 3 fouls in the first half, at which point Tibbs decides, let's start Burks in the second half. And then he picks up his 4th foul 30 seconds in and just goes to the bench. Just weird. But yeah, I mean, Quickly is very risky. There's a lot of ways for him to get there because he's not a bad fantasy producer. He's only 4,400. The issue is that Tibbs's rotations are so difficult to kind of read into. Like, what happens if Burks doesn't get in foul trouble in the second half? How much does Quickly actually play? He played like 13 minutes in the first half. If you're going to get 26 minutes or so from Quickly, he looks pretty good. But I don't totally trust Tibbs' rotations.
Do you have anything else for the Knicks?
No, not really. This team's just, it's really hard to be comfortable in much here outside of Obi Toppin's going to play a lot and RJ Barrett's going to look pretty good.
Did you see that the Washington football team will announce their new name on February 2nd?
Yeah, I love how they just like keep having things to announce every time something else stupid happens at their stadium or in their organization.
The Washington Crypto Rangers. Rolls right off the tongue.
I think based on the uniform, it's Commanders.
And whatever it is, apparently it's not one of the early favorites. So that seems like a really smart way to promote it.
Yeah.
Hey,
well,
you know the one that you guys really liked? We're not doing it.
Yeah. Well, when you don't have trademarks to any of those.
Yeah, you should definitely pay attention to trademarks, or someone will pop up immediately upon trying to do something like that.
But yeah, they did kind of leak. They leaked like a little bit of the uniforms, and part of it has like 3 stars on it, which I think is like from the DC flag. But
Okay.
it also would just make sense for it to be like, I know the Commanders was one of the teams that, or one of the names that had been like floated around.
There we go. Yahoo is our presenting sponsor for this show. Go to awesemo.com/Yahoo-promo. You can get the details. 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. You can get an additional free $10 credit and $25 on your first deposit by using the promo code Yahoo10. You could email support@awesemo.com if you have any issues. Tonight, Yahoo has the $50K NBA Baller Contest payouts going out to over 1/3 of the entries. It's one of the best NBA contests that you can enter on any given night. We've got tons of Yahoo DFS tools and projections that could help you win big. So don't sleep on it. Go to awesemo.com/Yahoo-promo in order to get the details. But a free month and some free money doesn't get much better than that. All righty then. On to Phoenix and the Pelicans.
Hang on, I wanted to mention one other thing. I think it was actually a good point in chat.
Go for it.
SMP said he could see this being a game where they go Gibson at the 4 to match up with Sabonis. I don't think that's the most likely case, but if Robinson and Sims are in, you certainly could see that happen.
Yeah.
I mean, Toppin's a liability on that end. You don't really want him dealing with either one, probably, of Turner or Sabonis. Certainly not Sabonis. So yeah, like that's something where I wouldn't plan on that happening, but it is certainly a possible answer to the, when you're asking at 11 o'clock tonight, how the hell did Toppin not get there? That would be one of the possible answers for sure.
There we go. Adam, don't let Josh talk about our no-name team. It's also my team. I've got a bunch of almost said it. Got a bunch of those jerseys in my closet right now. Not that I care about football in any way. Phoenix, 7-point favorites in New Orleans. This one's interesting. So we have no Jay Crowder, no DeAndre Ayton, no JaVale McGee, no Frank Kaminsky, no Abdel Nader. Welcome to the Phoenix Suns, Bismack Biyombo. That should be a fun experience. For the Pelicans, no Satoransky, but it looks like we have everybody else that was in from yesterday. So on Phoenix, Devin Booker heavily owned on FanDuel at 8K, 35% ownership. Chris Paul is at 25. Not sure I totally see that, but we could talk through it. Booker, Paul, Johnson, and Jalen Smith, all 15 to 20-ish% owned today. Who is your favorite Phoenix Sun?
Jalen Smith.
Of course. Just because he went to Maryland, man, doesn't mean you have to pick him immediately.
I mean, I think there's a lot of good ones, but
yeah. Assuming he's just starting at center and playing sort of like whatever he can handle.
Yeah, that's my expectation. I mean, it's not the safest spot having to deal with Jovel, but
do they start Biyombo because of that?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either, but like it's
they
there.
Could, I guess, but
like if you want to try to line that up, grabbing 6 minutes at the start of the first and the third quarter for Biyombo is probably better than him playing against Jackson Hayes.
Yeah, but Jovel's also just going to kill Biyombo. It doesn't matter.
You would think. Just putting it out there. I think he looks good too. 5,500 on DraftKings, 5,800 on FanDuel. I'm interested. What are we doing with Booker? What are we doing with the highest owned guy on DraftKings, $7,400 Chris Paul?
I think he looks really good. So one thing to point out too with Jalen Smith, I think from a projection standpoint, he's not going to look as good as Obi Toppin, most likely, especially if one of the centers are out, just because the minutes are going to look a little bit better for Toppin. But you're getting half the ownership. So he's certainly one of the guys where you can look at it and just say like, okay, well, I know Toppin projects a little bit better, but the range of outcomes is about the same. So kind of just wanted to point out, I think that's one that's like 2 players where you just can very easily pay attention to how they, relate to each other in terms of ownership. As far as Paul and Booker go, they both, I think, look really good. 7,400 on Paul is an insanely low price tag. If this game's competitive, you're likely to be getting 33, 34 minutes from him, well over a fantasy point per minute guy, around 1.2 DraftKings points per minute. And then Booker, more expensive, but also higher usage rate. He's the one that's more likely to go get you like 70 DraftKings points or 70 real points. But both of them, I think, look really, really good.
All righty. I mean, I'm guessing we could do what? 6 guys here: Booker, Bridges, Paul, Cam Johnson, Jalen Smith, Cam Payne. I mean, maybe you can have a share or two of Landry Shamet if the game breaks correctly. But I mean, we're talking about a guy that generally needs 30 minutes to be worth anything in DFS.
Yeah, that's pretty much the way I'm thinking too. Like Cameron Johnson at 5,200 is fine. He's another guy that Toppin's going to look better, but certainly at like one at basically half the ownership or 40% of the ownership, certainly can in lineups where you have more popular guys, save some ownership by going to Cam Johnson. That's perfectly fine. Cameron Payne, you're still not getting a lot of minutes alongside Chris Paul, which is a problem, but he's very productive when he's on the floor. He's still pretty cheap. Mikal Bridges plays a lot. That's about all I can say from him from a fantasy standpoint. Much better actual NBA player than fantasy player. And then, yeah, Shamet, you're kind of just saying like, okay, he's probably going to play 26 minutes. He's going to project for like 17, 18 DraftKings points. But, if he gets hot from 3, it's not like it's hard to beat a $3,500 salary.
All right. To New Orleans. Pelicans, pretty big dogs here. We've got Josh Hart, 16% owned on DraftKings, where he's only 6,600. Joval, 16% owned on FanDuel, where he's only 7,500. And then Nickeil Alexander-Walker gets to about 10% owned on both sides. The Pelicans are not grading out all that well. Some of the prices aren't ideal. I mean, Ingram, Graham, Jones, and Joval are all about 3% owned on DraftKings. If this game stays competitive, should we be looking at them a little bit more on a 5-gamer, or are they just as uninteresting as it seems?
I think they're mostly just pretty uninteresting, but anytime, especially on a 5-gamer, you can get Jonas Valanciunas, really struggling with that one today, at 3%, or Brandon Ingram at 3%. They still have in their range of outcomes those scores where like their salary doesn't matter. You're definitely overpaying for Ingram at 9,600. You're overpaying for Joval relative to position at 9,300. But if they go for 55, 60, you don't really care. Like you're going to need that. It's going to be like if I told you that they go for 55 or 60, you're putting them in your lineup and just figuring out how to make it work. So yeah, they both still have those games in their range of outcomes. But they're low owned for a reason, and it's because they're overpriced. So they're basically just guys where, you can use them as high upside contrarian plays. They certainly positively correlate to some extent with Paul and Booker, which is nice. Just because, if you get full run from Booker Paul, there's a good chance one of those guys is playing well.
Herbert Jones is 6,900 on FanDuel today and 4,600 on DraftKings, where he's power forward center eligible. This team is hilarious. It looks like Jackson Hayes is now the center behind Joval. He's 3,400 on DraftKings.
I'll take your word for it because I can't get this game to open in Popcorn Machine.
On a 5-game slate, I guess, that's mildly relevant. Hayes played 13 minutes in this last game out. Willie Hernangomez played 4.5. So I don't know. Seems like it. But also Willie Hernangomez is 5K. So you're not playing him regardless, even if he is sort of the backup for Joval. That salary makes it really difficult to do. I don't know. Pelicans just look underwhelming. But if it stays competitive, there's a raw point ceiling for Joval and Brandon Ingram that transcends their price tags on a 5-gamer.
Yeah, and also, I mean, if you're going to get 37 minutes from Josh Hart, that's reasonable.
Oh, yeah, I mean, he looks good. He's actually getting the ownership. I think he looks properly good at 6,600.
Yeah. I was going to say, and Alexander Walker is the one that I would say at 4,100 I'm most interested in taking a shot at. He still can absolutely suck, no doubt about it, but you're likely to get 25, 26 minutes at a little bit of an increased usage rate coming off the bench.
Anything else here?
Nope.
All right, we're closing it out. I got to hit you guys.
Something yesterday. This is the second person I've seen ask who the Colts is.
He definitely got second in the big FanDuel contest.
Okay.
I don't know if he was in anything else, like some of the high dollar stuff, he might have won it. I don't know, but he definitely got second in the biggest contest on FanDuel.
Okay, nice. I agree. It's certainly possible Ingram sits.
Promo code season here. You can go with 2022, get 22 days of Awesemo Plus Platinum for just $20. Gives you access to everything. Player projections, ownership projections, lineup builder, boom bust, all that good stuff. Or if you're willing to make the full, I want to just be with Awesemo for a while bet, Happy 22, HAPPY 22, 20% off a year of Awesemo Plus Platinum, taking it from $9.99 down to $7.99. These offers will end on January 7th. They're gone at that point. We don't offer yearly discounts all that frequently. Make sure you're taking advantage now, whether it's 2022 or Happy 2022. Sorry, whether it's 2022 or Happy 22, you can see them on the screen now. 2 very good promos for you to start this new year. let's kick it off. Closing it out, Sacramento Kings, 7.5-point dogs against the LA Lakers. And before we start it, I got to hit on two separate props that are popped up right now on OddsShopper. One of them, Russell Westbrook, 39% expected ROI. One of them, Tyrese Halliburton, 71% expected ROI. Adam, how do you feel about under 9.5 assists for Russell Westbrook today? I got him at 6.7 right now. Miles under it.
I have him at like 9.
Interesting. Okay. Still coming in under that 9.5 mark, though. 74% likely to win. You can go to oddshopper.com to see these. They'll all just be sorted for you in order of expected ROI if you want to see them. What about Tyrese Halliburton under 8.5 assists?
Under.
Yeah, me too. I got that one at 6.1. I think there's a lot of wiggle room there. That has a 71% expected ROI. You can check all of that stuff out at oddshopper.com. Now we'll touch on it a little bit from the DFS end. So for Sacramento, and we got about 8 minutes to go before we got to get out of here. Questionable tag on Terrence Davis. Still no Richaun Holmes. Fox, the most popular piece of this game, 7K on FanDuel, 24% owned, 7,100 on DraftKings. Also interesting. Damian Jones pulling the most ownership on DK, though. He's about 21% on both sites. I like him quite a bit, considering it appears that he's the starting center now. Halliburton and Barnes both seem viable. Marvin Bagley seems viable. This is a fast-paced game with very little defense. I like getting to almost everything from Sacramento.
Yeah, agreed. I think Jones stands out as the priority. I mean, 4K flat, played 29 minutes last game. He's just kind of taken over this role with Richaun Holmes out. You saw it in games where like Tristan Thompson was starting. Jones was just outplaying him off the bench anyway. We know that there's no real impetus for them to play Alex Len outside of backup minutes. So it's Jones' spot to lose, and barring foul trouble or injury or something, like I don't see why we wouldn't get 28 to 30 minutes here in a pretty good spot. Fox at 7,100 looks really appealing. You know, he's had his issues this year for sure, but he's really cheap. He's playing the Lakers. Hard not to like him there. Halliburton looks pretty good. Barnes' salary has come back down. Healed, you know, this is the kind of spot where for somebody that kind of gets more minutes if he plays well, going up against the Lakers is not a bad spot to be in to, you know, kind of embrace that volatility. So I kind of like that there's the pricing on the Kings, I think for the most part is like expensive enough that it's going to keep the ownership mostly in check outside of Jones, and we have Fox getting 15%. But I mean, 10% Barnes, 10% Halliburton, 8% Bagley, 5% Mitchell, 5% Healed. Those are all just really high upside spots relative to their salaries that you can get to here. 3,300 for Davion Mitchell. Like, yeah, he might play 18 minutes. He also could play 24 or 25.
Yeah. Terrence Davis probably needs to be out to feel really good about Davion Mitchell in that spot. Just
yeah, I mean, Davis can just throw a wrench into like any of these guys. Because the thing is, if Bagley starts, then you're getting most likely just an extra guy in the rotation with Terrence Davis coming back. If Terrence Davis were to come back and they were going to and they moved like either Davis or Metu into the starting lineup, then you could just like DNP Marvin Bagley potentially, and the minutes all still look pretty safe. So Davis is risky just because his minutes range is pretty wide. Like he could just play, 6 minutes and basically not be in the rotation, or they could play him 2 8-minute stints and you're looking, suddenly you're looking at like 32 for Halliburton, 30 for Barnes. Like we're back to that thing that they were doing, a couple of weeks ago.
$3,200 Alex Len.
He's in the Landale category.
Yep. Just want to make sure that we talked about him a little bit. I don't have too much to say about Bagley. 4,800 on FanDuel, 4,800 on DraftKings. It's hilarious that they gave him center eligibility on FanDuel. That's just not a position that he tends to play for the Sacramento Kings, but whatever. Is Fox the best guy here, though? Just best combination of like price and ceiling?
I mean, I think it's Jones and then Fox.
Okay. I think that's reasonable too. I have them super duper comparable on like relative to salary. And then we go to the Los Angeles Lakers. This one should be fun. Trying to scroll to it here. Avery Bradley probable, LeBron probable. No Stanley Johnson, no Anthony Davis, no Kendrick Nunn. LeBron, 35% owned on DraftKings, 45% owned on FanDuel. Russ, 35% owned on FanDuel, 17 on DraftKings. Malik Monk is about 20% owned across both. I think all three look great. I think LeBron is clearly the easiest pay up option to get to on a day like today where there aren't really any others. And he looks like the best by far, at least to me. I like Russ a lot for 9K on FanDuel. Monk is in a different role now. So those three guys getting ownership makes a ton of sense to me.
Yeah, sorry, I was confused because I hadn't realized the Lakers didn't re-sign Stanley Johnson. He's not on the injury report, so I was trying to figure out what you were talking about.
They're attempting to bring him back. They don't know how they're going to do that quite yet.
Okay, that makes sense because I was like, everything I'd seen was that he was like a long-term piece for them this year, and now he's gone. But yeah, so Monk, Westbrook, James, I think all look good. James, the priority here. He's been fantastic in these games without Anthony Davis. It's a really, really good spot. He, kind of disappointed last game, but I don't think there's any real reason to read into that. He's played, I think, 10 games now. 11 games without Davis. 1.73 DraftKings points per minute, 33% usage rate, 33% assist percentage, 37 minutes per game. Point guard, small forward again on DraftKings, which makes it even easier to get to him. So I think it's James 1, Monk and Westbrook both just look like good plays at their salaries. And then if you want to start mixing in, like some Melo, some Horton Tucker, I think those are reasonable.
God, Taylor Horton Tucker has been so bad.
Yes, he has. Do you think so? Dwight Howard starts tonight, right?
I think so. It makes the most sense. I think him getting like 12 to 14 minutes. Well, a center starts today is what I expect. Whether that's Dwight Howard or DeAndre Jordan, who the hell knows any longer? I don't trust this team, but I do think that we get center minutes. If you're playing at this team, like it just makes more sense to try to eat a little bit of that time. You don't need more time for like Austin Reeves.
Yeah, I think Howard's kind of interesting if he starts. He played 16 minutes against the Grizzlies, but he also lost 5 minutes in the second quarter to foul trouble. If he gets, the open the first half, close the first half, open the third quarter, never come back rotation, and you actually get, 20 to 22 minutes from him, he against the Kings, like it's not terrible.
I have a hard time actually projecting those minutes though. Like 16 to 18 feels like the most likely range. He's the flat minimum on FanDuel today.
Yeah, and he's only 4K on DraftKings, so he's the same price as Jones.
Yeah. There's something there.
Stanley Johnson being out, I think, makes a difference here. I guess they have Ariza that can just soak up minutes, but
yeah, Antoine, you're very not correct here, but that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, I don't know. If I had to project, like I'm projecting Dwight in, I got him at 16. That it feels difficult to go bigger than that. They can, like, I don't trust any of it at all. He's not going to pull any ownership.
Yeah, it's like, to be clear, I don't think he's like a great player or anything. If he got 20 to 22 minutes against the Kings, he looks at no ownership. Like I'm definitely interested. And based on the rotations the last time he started, I think he can get there if he avoids fouls.
Yeah, I'm with you. He needs that exact rotation. The
right
first, second, third, goodbye rotation.
Yep. Yeah, and then they're obviously closing with LeBron.
Or they don't do any of that stuff, at which point I guess Carmelo Anthony looks mildly more interesting.
Yeah. I think Anthony kind of looks a little more interesting anyway, because you can get him in the closing lineup. I think so. The closing lineup is probably Westbrook, Monk, LeBron,
Avery Bradley,
maybe. I was going to say like one of Anthony, Horton Tucker, and then probably one of probably like Bradley.
Well, we will dig into more of that on the deeper dive later today. Adam will have GPP videos and injury report videos up later as well. Contenders videos are already out. NFL strategy show coming up next. Good luck today, everybody. Thank you to Yahoo for being the presenting sponsor.